Hello again, BookTube. Back here with another new kind of video, one that I've been enjoying watching, and that is from Kevin Toll Reads, great YouTube channel. I'll be sure to put all of his information down below, but he has a series that he calls Let Me Know, where he proposes a lot of maybe common questions that book readers will pose to each other. And in this one, both his video and a follow-up by Steve Donoghue really kind of sparked something in me that I just had to sort of give my own take here in video form. And so this Let Me Know is, if you could, would you change book endings? And I think at first, you might want to think, okay, well, no, if an author misses an ending, they miss the ending. That's up to them. But I think we always have those books where you really enjoy them and think, oh, well, if they could just change it a bit, it would make it so much better. And what I really liked that Steve Donoghue proposed is he sort of had three different, I'll say, maybe types of endings that you would want to change. So we'll just kind of go over them and have a couple examples here of the latter two. So the first one that he proposes was an inept ending, one that just sort of the author kind of dies out as they're writing it. And I'm not sure this is one that I've been able to detect before. In a sense, we'll share one. The second book I share maybe will fall into this category. The second one, which is probably, harmless, but it's just you personally might not like the ending. You can see why the author maybe went where they did, but you would probably prefer it a slightly different way or with a little bit of additional details, perhaps, in the way it's done. And the third one, which Steve says is the mortal sin, is sort of a betrayal of the book. And I really like that word betrayal because I think that captures an ending where so much of what the author's writing towards with the characters and the development almost gets just abandoned. And that's hard to recover from. Obviously, you finish a book and you just think, what happened? Why would they do something? And so Steve proposes that that's the worst of the three. And what's interesting is I actually haven't read the books that both Kevin and Steve listed as some of their suggestions, and so now I'm very curious to get into something like The Stand that Kevin Toll recommended, or Hannibal, which I know Kevin Toll is actually a fan of, but Steve mentioned that in his video as Hannibal, having an ending of, I believe it was this third category. But I'll go into my first suggestion, or my first book ending that I would change, which falls into the second category. One where I personally thought it could have been a bit different, would change it if I had the option, but I guess I can also kind of see maybe why the author did that, and that is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And now some of you, if you saw my earlier video where I kind of went over this book, know that I really liked it. And I think that's something Kevin mentions, is you can have a book that you would want to change the ending of that you can still enjoy. And for a book that's over 1,000 pages, like this one was, or just close to 1,000 maybe, the whole way throughout, I really enjoyed the story. You're getting sort of this dystopian world of industrialists and achievement and pushing beyond sort of the government trying to get in your way, and so much of it has characters and stories that you appreciate, antagonists that you almost love to hate. And as we progress through the story, so I'm trying to make sure I don't maybe spoil too many of the details, but we have all our industrialists who keep disappearing from the U.S. All these great manufacturers and producers for the country, they keep disappearing just out of thin air almost. And everyone says, who is John Galt? What are we going to do about it? That's how life goes. We move on. We live another day. Sort of, the mass thought. Okay, great. I'm following along. I'm enjoying it. Our main protagonist, Dagny, she's sort of the spearhead of the railroad, keeping everything held together by her singular powers. And we get to a scene near the end of the book, not the end, where there's sort of this big revelation for her, discovering this great sort of world, and we have a great ending. And then she goes back to where she was, and we almost slip away. Okay, well, maybe we want to tie it up outside of this paradise, maybe that she found, this ideal setting for her. So okay, so she goes because she feels like she has unfinished business. Okay, so Rand continues to write, and then the part that I think I don't like is, I'd say within the last 50 pages or so, we've had great dialogue and backstory and sort of development from all our main characters. A lot of, sort of economic and philosophical belief behind a lot of what they're working towards. And then all of a sudden, these industrialists become a Mission Impossible task force. Like it just doesn't make sense. If you've read the book, maybe I'm over exaggerating kind of what happens at the end, but think of, you know, all these great industrialists and an early 20th century setting, just banding together and outsmarting the government. Say, okay, well, outsmarting the government, that's kind of their purpose, but it almost, I don't know, just push me the wrong way in that they're doing something that's so out of their league, something for the majority of people, killing someone blatantly for, I'd say, 4 out of 5 of this Mission Impossible crew wasn't part of their, their agenda. While they have, desires to make money and succeed in their industry, they're not out there to get anyone. And yet it almost sort of just changes. Now, whether or not those people were in the way or causing problems, I think it's an ending that I changed because I just didn't really get how Dagny and Reardon and all these people fell into the final placement. But at the same time, I guess maybe it shows, as you come to the end, the recollect or the recognition of the industrialists to kind of come back into the open world. I don't know. I'm curious if any of you have read this book, if you have anything even similar to my thoughts, or maybe you think I'm crazy, which is okay. As Kevin mentions, you can, like the ending, not like the ending, and still have the book kind of be on the opposite end of the spectrum. But then this brings me to what was Steve's third category, of the betrayal. And for me, it's weird because, right, this question is about endings to books. And so I'm worried if I'm maybe stretching ending into latter half of a book in this case, but that is The Sea Wolf by Jack London. And this is one where going into it, I was really excited. We meet Humphrey and Wolf Larson. Wolf Larson's this, nature is king figure. He is hardened by the sea, but also refined in a very animalistic sense to, high culture. This Humphrey guy comes in basically, he's washed up, or yeah, washes, next to the ghost, the name of the ship, and they save him, and he kind of has to harden himself. Literally, they talk about, the calluses on his hands as he's working out on sea on this sealing ship. And this book is just giving us all this great sort of dichotomy between, the upper class and someone that's grown up through, not really having to work themselves for anything. Everything's always been provided. And then someone who literally day in and day out is grinding to make money and basically fight the ocean. We're getting scenes of, mutiny on the ship and violence and so much great action. And then all of a sudden, Jack London, and this is where I kind of start maybe losing a bit of it. So this is where maybe this isn't an ending itself, but brings in, a castaway female character. It's like, okay. I mean, I guess in theory, with kind of the way he set it up, it's possible. Bad storm, they wash up. Okay. And as we progress, and as there's more kind of wild scenes on the ship, and Wolf Larson continues to be an absolute brute of a captain, we we see sort of an escape attempt by Humphrey, our well-to-do, now hardened sailor, and the female, to go and try and escape from the grasp of Wolf Larson. So, okay, I can kind of see that. You're trying to break away from the forces of who Wolf Larson can be on the ship. Just extremely overpowering. And they're making do kind of on this unknown sealing island, hoping that someone will rescue them, or come to get the seals. And then they start losing hope, and all of a sudden, the ghost shows up, destroyed to a good degree, but it shows up, and Wolf Larson's the only one there. But it's not the same Wolf Larson. He's angry, he's cynical, but he's a shell of himself. And it was interesting because I was reading a bit of a backstory, and Jack London is known for going out, living, sealing, being a true adventurer, and basing this Wolf Larson character off a captain he himself dealt with. And so, while I don't deny that this could happen to a man, it felt like in the novel itself, we almost see Wolf Larson in a state that I almost picture him never being able to reach. Um, Something I really enjoy about the Jack London books is, at least in the novels I've read, and the vast majority of the short stories, is you can never beat nature. Nature is always going to win. No matter what you do, no matter what you think you can do, you're never going to outfight nature. At a certain point, you might win the battle today or tomorrow or next year, but eventually you're going to be gone and nature's still going to be there, which is a humbling effect. And I think when we see Wolf Larson almost flip into essentially this crippled, blind, paralyzed form of a man, we lose all of that beast inside of him. And I think that's where I kind of feel that betrayal within the ending. Not to mention that it basically just turns into a Hallmark love story, but ignoring that aspect, I think the betrayal of Wolf Larson himself is the part that bothered me. Where it's not just getting beat down by time, which is going to happen inevitably. It's almost in it, it, it almost doesn't seem possible, and maybe that's the point, that even someone as strong as Wolf Larson can't beat the effects of time and nature and the sea. So maybe I'm just thinking too harshly about it, but really enjoyed the prompt proposed by Kevin Towles, right? Thinking about endings we'd change. I'm curious if there's other endings that you would change if you could. I know both Steve and Kevin mentioned Stephen King being notorious for dropping off endings. I've never personally read any Stephen King's works, so I'm curious. Maybe that's consistent throughout with those that like reading him, or any other books. I guess something I didn't mention was I read the Miles Davis autobiography, and I felt in that, kind of the ending of that, it was interesting because he's still, at the time of the publishing, he was still, to my knowledge, alive. And so it's kind of a weird, just abrupt ending where he's leaving. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. These albums will, should be released, and you almost want like a recap. If it's a later printing, sort of a post mortem to catch it up. But that's not really an ending I'd change. Just maybe a experience with a nonfiction category compared to both Atlas Shrugged. So I mentioned, right, kind of the Mission Impossible crew, and then we had the Seawolf, where Wolf Larson, a fantastic character, kind of goes out, and I I wish it ended differently. Is certainly the case here. But that's all I have for today. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, BookTube.